to give
recording.
an intro as to where we are, what we are, and why we are.
Okay. Okay, right. So for those that are new, basically, we started 5 years ago with BIM for housing, and about 18 months, in fact, it's probably 2 years ago now, we started BIM in asset management, which is really looking at the specifically at the asset management side of things. And the approach that we took with BIM for housing was to focus on better information management and look at it, BIM, from the point of view of what information could developers or the development teams produce that would make the job easier for design and construction. And what information could design and construction teams may do or provide that's going to make the job easier for the operations teams. And as a result of that, we then looked at that, really from a point of view of the golden thread, to say we needed to improve the way data was structured. So we came up with standardized information requirements and standardized data templates. We also then looked at processes to make sure that you could improve the way that information could be provided. And that's where things like classifications and reusable libraries come in. We did a lot of work specifically around fire safety because that was part of the process that the government asked us to look at. And I'll show you a bit of example of that in a minute. Sustainability was also an important aspect, and the production of digital records. So the way in which we went about that, which is really, we've learned a huge amount as to how you can get knowledge from people and then turn it into something meaningful, is that we're part of what's called the Golden Thread Initiative, which was the group that was advising the government and the regulators in terms of what was reasonable to expect the industry to provide. So we became part of an industry initiative, and our focus was on the asset and survey information. And the way in which we went about doing that was to create Teams meetings, and some of them in person, like this one here, where we've got groups of people from a particular discipline who would, those people there, for example, they're all manufacturers. The people that you see now, designers, and in the distance you'll see operators. And the beauty of this is that we've got people who are probably competitive sitting around the table sharing their experiences. And what we were really addressing was the fact that the legislation doesn't give any explicit requirements. It's and therefore you've got different experts interpreting the information slightly differently, and they're then giving guidance to people, which is not consistent. So that can confuse the heck out of supply chains. So what we've been doing is trying to create, where we can, reusable libraries and standardized processes. And this, for example, is a Miro board that we created to get everybody that was interpreting the legislation to do so in a collaborative way. And this is available to you. It's a Miro board. And if you want access to it, then if you just put Miro in the chat, then we can, if you just type MIRO in the chat, we'll give you access to it. So the other thing that we were doing, which these are publications that you can get off the BIM for Housing website, we were looking at what risk does an asset mitigate? What do people do to it to stop it from working? What information is needed about it? And this is fantastic information that we're now mining as far as AI is concerned. But this information we've got for 12 safety critical assets, and this is the quality of information. For example, this is describing in detail what a fire door does, what risk is it mitigating, also how do people stop it from working, and what information do we need to be capturing during the design and construction process. What we've also done is we've had hundreds of people input to this, which is a standardized way of doing fire door inspections, or a standardized way of also doing the same with fire dampers and cavity barriers and things like that. So the principle that we're working on here is to really share knowledge and capture it in a way that we can then use. We also, because of the group that we've got, we're engaging with regulators. So this is something nice that the MHCLG said about us, and also the HSE. And we've got conversations going on at the moment with the fire service to be able to look at all of the overwhelming amount of legislation that people have got and are trying to deal with. And what we said probably 6-9 months ago is really coming home to roost rather. So, for example, this was before Christmas, where the developer here, they couldn't get Gateway 3 approval, largely because of design faults, but also because they couldn't evidence what's been going on. The cost of this is millions. Here's another one that cropped up last week, where Lendlease are taking action against Balfour Beatty on a building that was built 25 years ago. And last week, also, there's the Mace action that's just happened, where it's £5 million, about 132 fire dampers, because they've been installed, which walls they've been installed in. So the key thing about that is that I think that we've got a business case there to really get people to start taking things seriously. Finally, the elements of the promotions that we've been doing. We were at Digital Construction Week, so we had a team there. We also did a major event with UCL for all the universities. The Smart Building Conference in Birmingham, and at London Build, we were in 4 different panel sessions on the fire safety stage. One was with Risk Base, another with OneTrace, another with Plan Radar, and another with SE Controls. So there's a lot of knowledge that's then being promoted through there. And, finally, all of this only comes together when you actually apply it to real projects. And what we're trying to do is identify real projects that we can take these concepts, the things that we've been collaborating around, to work on that. And we've got an education working group, a schools working group, and we're planning to have a meeting in about 2 weeks' time as a follow-up to that. We've had a couple of meetings, and Richard's going to show you where that information is on the website. We've also got a group looking at healthcare, and generally we've got a group looking at digital handover, which is a far more generic exercise. I think that's it, Richard. I was going to hand over to you now.
Thank you,
Richard, you're on mute.
Richard.
Gordon's got his hand up.
Sorry, again, Richard, and thanks, George. George, can you just explain the claims that are coming from Lend-Lease and from Mace that you mentioned earlier on? Presumably they're just following the old lines of latent defects, you know, for in the sense of it's not just a defect during construction, but it's a latent defect over a longer period of time. I take it that's the grounds that they're making the claim.
Yeah, they're looking at the Defective Premises Act, I think, which was changed so that it, my understanding is that the building was built by a contractor that was employed by Lend-Lease, and then Balfour Beatty bought that contractor, I think probably 5 years after they built the building, and now there was a problem with compartmentation, I believe, and they're going back. You know, they're holding Balfour Beatty liable. So I think the point is that what we often hear is, why should we bother with the golden thread? Because nobody's been prosecuted.
Without a question of a doubt. I completely agree.
But this is now, I think we've got clear evidence there of at least 3 projects where that isn't the case. So I think that we need to, I'd like to gather more examples than that. So my request to the community is, let's try and gather as many examples of that, because the challenge that we've got, I think, is that within this group, we've got a lot of people who are already converts. The challenge we've got, as I'll talk later, is actually persuading senior management that that this is a real risk. Richard.
Okay, before I actually go through the website quickly, we've got a lot to get through today, which is not unusual actually in our meetings. So I'm going to say to presenters, please stick to your time. I mean, I'll give you a 1-minute warning or something possibly, because we really do need to get through this. Our presenters are very passionate about their subject, or they wouldn't be presenting. But we do need to keep to time. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and whiz you quickly through the website, the reason for which will become apparent. Okay.
Just whilst you're doing that, Richard, oh, that's okay. You're there now.
Okay, so can you see that?
Yep.
Okay, so at the top, upcoming events, you can see today's meeting. That's just a few lines on what we're doing. This is what we do. Bring together the professionals across construction asset management. How do we do it? We do it through our working groups. That working groups look across all sectors, and they will identify specific issues that need to be covered. They will pass those through. They will set up work streams. We've got some here. Look, now we have 4 meetings of these work streams. These are task and finish. The idea being is we have something to do, let's do it, and there's an output. Now, if we look at last week's AWAB's law, there we go. You can see our leaders there. And we have meeting notes, the full video of the meeting, and a 10 to 15-minute podcast, which unfortunately our software only does in an American accent, but they're really very good, and it gives you the full gist of what happened if you miss a meeting. So let me go back. Okay, this section is on the Golden Thread Task Force, which George will be giving you a run through a bit later. The Knowledge Hub. Right, so this is where, because our Knowledge Hub is you, and it's our meetings and our outputs from those meetings. So there's a tab there with past events, and this which goes through to the black box. Now the black box if it will go through. Here we go. Is this. And this is where you can report or share anonymously if you wish incidents. This would be a major incident that happened that you're aware of, that you were a participant of, or came up with a solution for, to give, you know, when it happened, what happened, a photo if you've got it, what kind of building, short-term implications, things for, we've only just relaunched this actually, so there's not a great deal on it. But if you've got an incident you want to share that is will bring learning to the community and the wider industry, put it on there. This is for asset risks. You can see here we've got smoke seal on door damage when easing a non-closing fire door, how it was fixed. Some of them got photos. So this is about sharing issues, whether they're big issues or smaller issues. Oh, okay. Then down at the bottom, we've got resources. These are our fire critical assets. Here, AOVs, fire doors. This is guidance we reviewed just middle of last year. Latest reports, digital records. So that is the website. Now, if I can move down here, right, I'm gonna, if I just focus on one of the meetings we had last week, which was the digital handover work stream. That was looking at why digital handover information is routinely delivered but rarely used. And the next steps from that were to form sector-specific working groups, schools, healthcare, residential, which we'll be asking you if you wish to join any of those sector-specific groups, schools, healthcare, or residential. Develop practical audit and validation workflows. Quantify the financial and risk value of usable digital handover, which is something we are actually actively working on, and George will come on to later, and produce repeatable client-led models that can be embedded contractually. So that's the kind of thing that happens in one of our meetings. So now I'd like to hand over to Kevin Phippen, who has got a good example of a specific issue that he has had, and we'll be looking for others from you as the meeting progresses. So, Kevin, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, thank you, Richard. Well, let me share my screen with you all. Hopefully. Can you all see the blue
Not
slide
yet,
on screen?
Kevin. No.
Not yet.
No, I'm not seeing anything.
Bear with me. Let me try again.
Just whilst Kevin's doing that, oh, sorry, carry on. Carry on.
Shout out when you can see something. So
Yeah.
Yes, got it,
Yeah.
Kevin.
Can you see that now?
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
I'll keep it on that view rather than try and do it as a presentation because we might well lose it otherwise. But
Yeah.
I was just trying to illustrate, I think I touched upon it in the last meeting, that I think there are lots of great things about digital information, lots of great things about BIM and the way it works, but it can be quite confusing if you've not been familiar with it before, because it becomes a bit like old MacDonald had a farm. You get EIR, OIR, AIR, all these kind of acronyms that flow around BIM. And there's an awful lot of data that's involved in the handover from the end of a construction project through to the sort of active life of a building. And I just want to touch a bit on that and my experience of it. And I think what I'm always trying to say to people is very much keep it simple. You know, the information that's required to maintain and look after the building once it becomes a live building is not all of the stuff that's within the PIM, the project information management files. A lot of that stuff tends to follow the Pareto example. You know, 80% of it is there, it needs to be there, it's information that you need, but it should be in a dead file, in an archive file. And what you need to do is separate the 20% that actually you do need, that needs to go into the CAFM system, from the 80% of information that's about the construction phase. And that's what this slide is all about. It's totally in line with the standard, the 19650 standard. That would encourage you again to separate things and to thin out all of the data before it goes into the CAFM system. And if you do that, you've then got half a chance of creating a proper active CDE, a common data environment, where things are being exchanged in real time. Otherwise, if you don't do that and you try and put everything in the construction files into the CAFM system, you create a massive human in the loop situation where you almost need an empire of people just to keep swapping information from one part to another to ensure that it's all up to date and compliant. And I use the example very often with people that a building is very similar to a car. You know, we may not be familiar with buildings and building maintenance, but we certainly, most of us, either own a car, drive a car, or know what a car looks like. And the level of detail that's required to maintain a car isn't in the information that you get when you buy the car. It's in the maintenance plan that's held by the service station or garage, wherever you take it for its maintenance. So that you don't need a lot of level of detail other than the car and its registration number, its VIN plate. All of the level of detail that you need to maintain it is within the maintenance plan, within the maintenance program. And it's exactly the same with a building. You need to know from a CAFM point of view or a CMMS point of view that you have a large air handling system, you have a fire system, you have a heating system, you have cold water systems. But what you need to do to those systems and the frequency at which you need to do it should be in the maintenance program and should not become a series of individual assets in their own right. Otherwise, you end up creating massive amounts of unnecessary work and confusion, and it's very, very difficult, if not impossible, to keep all that information current and up to date and to create a proper working CDE. And you know, there's an example of the kind of maintenance plan that we would put together for someone, which covers off the main systems and explains where the LOD sits. All the stuff from Kobe is relevant, but it should be divided between the active needs of the asset, managing it going forward, and the sort of static or archived needs that should sit somewhere in a file. You can easily go and find it, but you don't need to have it in the CAFM system, the CMMS system, because it's not relevant for the day-to-day maintenance of the building.
Excellent, Kevin. Thank you.
And it's sorry, just coming to the end,
Carry on,
pausing for effect there for a moment.
Yeah, Kevin, I'm gonna have to hurry you along, Kevin.
Okay, it's very much about the KISS thing. You know, people have heard it before. Keep it short and simple, or keep it simple, stupid. You know, that's a phrase that actually came from the US Air Force and was kind of in response to the Kobe data from the US Army when they were developing aircrafts and maintaining aircrafts. So all the things I'm talking about, you know, have a long history about thinning that data down before you transfer it into the CAFM system and so on. And if anybody wants more information, this is a very small example. You know, certainly contact me through George, and we can set up a separate meeting and I'll run through it in more detail.
Excellent, excellent.
Brilliant.
Thank you very much for that. Right, okay. Anybody got any questions on or inputs to anything they've heard so far? Pierre.
Kevin, thank you very much. Just very interested. One of the things about assets is that we need to package the right amount of information at the right time for whatever the purpose is. And that's one of the real beauties of digital work, is in fact to be able to do exactly that. One of the things I think is that if we package those like we would, I use an application called Plannerly, but essentially what it's doing is giving those bite-sized chunks that means that the design team are populating things properly. The handover then can take place properly. And from your side on the CAFM side is that you're getting the right amount of information. And I think sometimes we're just overworking it. We need to actually make these little lenses that we can see, and it'll markedly change the way we work.
I think absolutely, Pierre. And I think just touching on that point, that was brought up in the last meeting, that I think it overwhelms the FM company or the service provider if you try and give them too much information, because it doesn't fit into their CAFM system. They don't really need a lot of that stuff. And it's about managing the data and making it relevant before you try and hand it over. And then the handover becomes much more practical and much more useful. And the service provider wants that information, needs the information, and doesn't become overwhelmed by it. And it's very much that process of thinning it down and making it relevant.
Certainly. 100% about that is use the right people who are actually responsible for making those decisions, get it 100% right, and then it's available for everybody thereafter.
Absolutely.
Because they in fact still remain the owner until they've handed it over, which is also an interesting.
Yeah, I think, Pierre, it's also, once you get to that situation, it becomes more manageable in terms of keeping everything up to date. Because I think one of the real problems of all the data that's now available is that it's very easy to become non-compliant, because you've got masses of data and you need to keep all that data current, all the O&M data, all of the historic maintenance data. And if you're trying to put too much into the system, it'll fail for the wrong reasons. It won't be updated properly, and then the whole thing will become irrelevant. So it's very important to get it right at the outset, and it keeps it easier for everyone to do that than it is to try and do it after the handover.
Absolutely. Let me bring Nick in. Nick.
Just, Kevin, you seem to be suggesting that COBE is producing data or offering data for use cases that aren't relevant. What are the use cases that you're rejecting?
Well, not so much rejecting as redirecting. I think all the information is relevant, but from a maintenance point of view, or from an asset management point of view, as an example, I need to know that in that building is a large air handling system, but that's pretty much it. I just need the detail that it's an air handling system and where it is and where I can find the various components that require maintenance. I don't need to have all the details of all the spigots, all the lengths of ductwork, all the various vents that have been fitted to it. It's great that I have that and I can put it away in a file somewhere, but I don't need it for active asset management.
That's never been part of COBE. I think you seem to be fighting against a mythical COBE that was never proposed.
I mean, I guess it varies in all situations, but certainly my experience has been with a handover quite recently that all that data was in the COBE files.
I think the thing is, Nick, it's a well-made point that people keep thinking of COBE as being the definition of the data set, whereas actually it's a data schema to deliver whatever is agreed at the level of detail that's agreed.
I mean, it's always been focused on maintainable equipment, and I guess trying to understand what it is that Kevin's reacting against.
I say in the general sense, it's simply that there's too much information that isn't relevant to the active asset management of the building. It might be relevant to the archive file, but I guess it's a feature of not having an accurate employer's asset requirement or information requirement at the start of the project within the REBA stages, that often all the stuff coming through is all the detailed information that is relevant to building something but isn't relevant to maintaining it necessarily afterwards.
Okay, I want to move on because we've got people with hands up. Dustin.
Thanks a lot. I just wanted to agree with what Kevin's proposing. We issue health and safety files very often, and we'll actually review information that the principal contractor will hand over to the client at the end of a project. And I think the problem stems from the contractor getting all this information from all the different disciplines and the contractors on site. And what they do is they take it and they'll just dump it into a platform like Dalux or ZooTech or whatever, and they just put all this information. And the problem that I've come to realize is that the people that are managing this information don't know what the information is, and they'll just put it into all these different folders. And when I come and have a look and I say, well, where's the access and maintenance strategy for, how do I get their handling unit on the roof? The information is there, but it's not actually arranged in a place where it's actually user-friendly, or where a facilities management team can go, well, look, where is it? I mean, in the ideal world, I'd love to open up a model, click on it, it'll show me it's on the 3rd floor. What is the safe route to get to it, and what are the risks associated with it? So that's all the information the facilities management need, is to know where the item is, what are the risks associated with the item, and what is the owner information relating to that item. Whereas at the end of a project, contractor gets so much information, they finish their job, they've built the building, I apologize for the dog in the background, and they just dump all this information on the platform, and nobody takes charge of that information when they've handed it over. And I think as much as what we can try and do on these sort of platforms is to arrange this and tell them this is what we need, until we get a key duty holder saying, look, I'm responsible for this, I'll manage this information when we hand it over, we'll always have that problem that it's not being managed properly, because the client doesn't know what half the information is that he's been given. He's got all these models he doesn't know how to use, and they stick it on an online platform, and somebody says, oh, I'll look after your information. And that's all it is a dumping ground for all these folders, and they're not actually putting them in the right place so that the next person comes along and uses it properly. We have jobs all the time where we say, well, where's the health and safety file? The building's not even 5 years old. And they go, I don't know. Or they give you a dozen health and safety files from each individual contractor, which defeats the point.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Pierre, very briefly, please.
Very briefly, Dustin, the problem is that you need to define at the beginning of the project who gets what, who looks after it, who hands it over. There's an audit process, they hand it over, and at the end of the day, it gets given to the client, the developer, whoever's owning that building, and they have their mandate saying to them what they'd originally required at the very beginning of the inception. They get the stuff, and that's it. It's a very clear process that we need to actually make sure we engage.
Yeah.
And audit it.
Absolutely. Right. Just before I hand over to George to look at further projects in digital handover, I just want to say, I mentioned earlier on that we've got 3 new work streams: education, healthcare, and residential. If anybody wants to join the education work stream, put education in the chat. If you're interested in education, the education work stream, put that in the chat. If you're interested in healthcare, put healthcare in the chat. And if you're interested in residential, put residential in the chat. So education, healthcare, residential. Get those in the chat. Okay, George.
Okay. So one of the challenges that comes out of what Kevin was saying there is that what often is happening, even on a brand new building, I've been muted. Okay. Don't know why. Can you hear me okay now?
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. I think everybody was muted.
Oh, okay. Right. So, yeah, that's one of the challenges at the moment, that people are sending out people to survey because they're not getting the right asset information from the process. So findability is a really important thing, and it's a very important point that really Kevin's made there, but you've got different stakeholders who need different information. So the CAFM system, for example, is only used by certain people within the asset management process. Other people that need life cycle information, for example, or building safety information, will be looking for different information sets. And that all needs to be delivered in some way, but then you filter out the stuff that isn't relevant to you. And that's why the digital side of things is important. the reason I put those slides, those people up there, is these are all software companies who we're working with, who are part of our community, who are willing to work collaboratively. And later on, towards the end of this session, we're going to talk about collaborative projects. So if you're interested in collaborative projects and maybe providing some, then hang on till the end. So what we're really doing with digital information from an asset management point of view is turning record information from dumb to smart to make it machine addressable, from passive to active, from human actionable to machine actionable, and basically providing the building blocks for AI. So that's what we're really doing. And one of the challenges that we've got is the way information's typically handed over. You might have a BIM model, CAD data, COBie data. A lot of the information is probably in O&Ms and 360 photos, all fantastic data, but they're often not connected. So the result is that the only way of checking and processing them is to do it manually. And Tim's going to show you in a moment the sort of things that the teams are doing to actually automate some of that process, to remove silos, make things more connected and therefore more findable. So because we can then take the information, which is probably very good information that's in the BIM models, but it won't be complete because the M&E, detailed M&E information of what's been installed seldom put in. That normally comes in through technical submittals, and the balance of that can come through 360 photography. And that makes it a lot easier to keep up to date. So the 360 photography is an area that we've got a work stream working very actively on that, and we're applying that to lots of different projects to be able to add intelligence, asset intelligence to the 360 photographs. And by doing that, it means that we can use 360 photography to navigate to information that is captured during the normal delivery process. We can use any camera, so it doesn't really matter which technology is used to create the 360s. And then there's a whole range of fantastic applications that construction teams are using for their evidence gathering, which we can use and apply from a data capture perspective to validate what's been installed, to even do condition assessments. The other aspect that we're talking to
George, you're going to have to speed up very quickly.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So basically, there's a whole range of applications that the 360s can then be used to interface with. So that's me, Richard.
Excellent. Okay, so Tim, a very strict 5 minutes on data engineering, please.
Tim, are you there?
If you are, you're on mute.
Okay, should we skip to the next one?
Okay, well, that is discussion around data engineering.
Yeah.
So right, okay, so let's look at golden thread benefits while we're sorting out this technical hitch. That'll be you, George.
Say that again, sorry, Richard.
It's golden thread benefits, George.
All right, okay, yeah.
We will come back to data engineering, I promise you. Yeah, Tim's not in the meeting, George.
Can we just have a conversation around that, and I'll phone him now, because.
Okay, right. So what you've seen already, from what George has said about data and digital handover on projects. Have we got any discussion on that? Anybody got anything to say about that? Dustin, you had your hand up. Come and save me.
Apologies, pushed the wrong button.
Oh, has anybody got anything to say about a digital handover?
I can complain about digital handover, but I've got nothing constructive to.
Okay, anybody got any comments?
Anybody
on what
got
you've
a
heard so
fun-
far about anything?
And sorry,
Yeah, I've got
Morgan,
some
is that you?
experience I could share.
anybody got a fantastic example of an
Yeah.
exemplar digitally handed over building?
Has anybody got an example of an exemplar digital handover building? Martin has. Martin.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, sorry.
Sorry, James, I'll come back to you.
Yeah, it's fine.
Go, Martin.
So I'm relatively new to the group. Hi, everyone.
Welcome.
I was involved with the MEP data control side of the Elizabeth Tower project. That one was particularly well done digitally, although bear in mind that the cost involved in that amount of data management was over and above what you would expect to see in an average project. Obviously, the scale of the project was enormous, and every piece of masonry, every piece of equipment that was taken out of the building to restore was labeled and tracked and sent halfway around the world, and people could check on its progress at any time. And then when it's all been put back together, obviously the amount of data that was held on each individual piece was probably to the extreme, but still it was then all put into the appropriate systems for tracking and asset management, and I believe from there, because I'm no longer involved in that project, I believe from there that it is a good case of how it could be done.
I'll tell you what, it'd be interesting, Martin, to be a fly on the wall in 5 years' time to see if it's been updated, won't it?
I very much so, yes. That is the kind of key really that I've seen with most projects, because I've worked on everything from the extreme bargain basement cheap end of the spectrum all the way up to huge scale public buildings. And the one consistent thing that I've found throughout is, generally speaking, when the project demands value rather than, how to put it, rather than it being, effectively, if cost is the primary choice as to who you pick to do the job, then generally along hand in hand with that, you'll find that progressively the data aspect of it is worse and worse.
Absolutely, I think that's true. Right, James, can I come to you very, very quickly, because I believe we have Tim.
Right. Okay. Yeah, it's just relating to government contracts and handover, and we got exemplar projects along with open standards where we delivered massive volumes of data in accordance with the requirements, and we leveraged that data during construction effectively. But when we try and translate that into operations, it's a bit of a disappointment really, because a lot of that information just isn't used. We got operators who come on board late if it's a new build potentially, and they bring their own data schemas. A translation needs to occur, and the chain is broken effectively, and a lot of the data is effectively binned. Also, the translation costs a lot of money as well. Right, we've got FMS 002, government standard, very sensible. If you match your BIM requirement to that, you can reduce that requirement by a significant amount. I'm not saying it's the be all and end all. There are other considerations you need to make, but that should be your base point to start from on government contracts, and you can reduce BIM, take this strain off the supply chain, There's a relationship between quality and quantity, and then the operator. And if you speak to lots of Sodexo, etc., they're quite happy with FMS 002. That's a good standard for them to follow, and then also maintain going forwards. So yeah, there's a simpler way. We're making this really hard, really stressful. It costs a lot of money, and there's a lot of waste. I'm not saying FMS 002 is the be all and end all, and I know George and I have had a bit of a discussion around that, but it's a great starting point.
I
And I'll
absolutely
stop there.
agree,
I'll stop there.
George, are you going to speak now, or do I go straight to Tim?
Go to Tim. Yeah.
Tim,
So-
are you there?
Yes.
You are.
Yes, I
Welcome.
am. Yes.
Welcome.
Yes.
Well,
Right,
you've got a
okay.
very strict 5 minutes, Tim.
Thank you very much. Okay,
Yes.
so it's a slide presentation.
Yeah.
So if people were in the previous one, presenting scenes, yeah, present. And we're going to live. Right, okay.
Yeah, got it.
Right, okay. So anybody who was in the previous one will have seen this. But effectively our experience was, this experience is over what we've learned about the constantly getting the gap between in handover. And what we're trying to do is bridge that. So on an example that we had, that we got, obviously if you get this gap, you're going to get these problems, and they're going to be further down the line, and you know, you find them when you find them. So one of the gaps that I wanted to mention was the here is a Kobe data set, which is supposed to be a handover data set, but unfortunately it was taken from a model or a federated model that was not updated by installation contractors. And then at the bottom here, you've got the installation contractors' door sets, and here you've got the door sets that are in the Kobe file. The Kobe file doesn't include any door numbers, so that makes it a bit challenging to compare it with the actual schedule. And the number of door types in the Kobe is about 30 or 20 or 30 or whatever, and the number in the manufacturers is 100. So there's you start to get these mismatches. The other thing is we'll get onto some really crackers in a minute, but it makes it impossible if you can't match up by door numbers. So issue one there, and that's just the illustration there. There's 7 door types that the manufacturer of the doors has actually expanded, but there's only one type in the Kobe data set. The other thing is that the manufacturer's schedule is baked into a PDF. So, and if ever you've tried to run through a spreadsheet in a PDF file, you know what the problems are there. So, why is it distributed like that? I don't know. But obviously, if you've got the right extraction tools, you can extract it back out into a spreadsheet. And that is not necessarily a clean and easy at times. Depends on what somebody's done to a spreadsheet. And another door manufacturer on the same project has done the same thing, embedded a spreadsheet into an O&M, and of course it's a different format, and you've got to extract that and sort that out into a spreadsheet as well. And then when we came to look at the building model from the architects, we found that the door numbers, where they did put the door numbers, some of them had been copied up from different levels, but they're not actually in the nomenclature of the door number. It actually specified what the floor level was, and they'd not changed it. So you had duplicates of the door numbers. So nobody checked through that. So these slight basic things to me, but obviously if nobody's checking, nobody's picking it all up. So then as a company, we have to do engineering gymnastics to try and restructure the information. Not something you want to do. Where's the liability? And you shouldn't have to do it. In our spatial model, which we call the PIN, and then when it becomes operational, it becomes the AIM. We hold everything in a spatial database, and we're able to display it, and we're able to locate items. And then when you click on the item, you get the relevant information about the instance and about its product and about any other attribute data, maybe also links to audits and schedules, etc. I'll just quickly skip through that. But we can also put in backdrops. So we can put in a number of backdrops. And then when we look at the backdrops, here's one which is the fire escape. And they've very helpfully identified those doors that are fire doors. Unfortunately, they haven't put the numbers on. So how was anybody supposed to relate that back to some other information? We don't know. But obviously, we're able to overcome that if we're able to multi-layer information up. I'll just move on a bit forward. It's same thing. Then if we get the manufacturer's door schedule in, providing we've got keys that match up the door numbers, then we're able to bring back the record of that spreadsheet. And we just display it in a concertina, accordion, sorry, not concertina, and an accordion style format rather than trying to look through 50 columns on a row. We just made it easier to look through. So we sort of looked back at this and we then, hang on, people are getting these massive data dumps, usually as a WeTransfer. So I just wrote a program that allows us to quickly scan either the zip file or the folder structure and give us a report. And it also gives us a navigation list so that we can then click on in the spreadsheet, click on the name of the file, and it'll just take us to the file. But here's some examples. My favorite one is line number 4. Number of files with 0 size, 35. So in the data set, there were 35 files that didn't have any size to them at all. Why are you providing this? Other checks are what the duplicates, whether you've used a certain naming convention, and then unknown file types. Why are you providing file types that nobody knows how to open, hasn't got the application? What's the point? And then there's a great one down there, which is the spreadsheet that's got a macro. Now, I don't know about you, but most organizations put a really big rule that nobody's to send spreadsheets to other organizations with macros in them. They're a potential hole for injecting viruses into systems. So why are you providing it in a data set? I don't know. And then the last one, which is the zip files. And I call these Russian dolls. So zip files within zip files within zip files in the data set. And when you actually open them up and look inside them, they've already provided that information. So this is just, to me, is it sloppy, or is it the fact that they can't actually check the information before they send it? Right. So the project we actually were asked to do was to check the validity of O&Ms. So we created a process where we could take the O&M and we could process it and check it. Now, we already have a manual way of our teams checking things, and they have an instruction set. So we took the instruction set and just simply turned it into something that the AI could read and process. And so that's, you take the document, you have the instruction set, you send it to the AI, and it then generates reports, and then it gives you a summary. So to process each one of those, the AI takes about 15 minutes. So you just leave it on a batch run, and 30 odd O&Ms done, then gives you a report. There's an awful lot of red in there, no surprise there. And this is what the physical report it does, so that you can send it out to people and say, right, there's why we're passing it or failing it. And when it does pass it, the AI the instructions says evidence what you found. So this is where it's putting in comments and saying, I've passed this because you've included X, Y, Z, and there are the pages it's on. The last thing I just wanted to touch on is when a lot of people are worried when they hear the anecdotal talking and discussion about hallucination and isn't it going to do this, that, and the other. And there's a very good, there are tools already in there in the whole process. And one of them that you'll hear about is called the RAG database, which is basically where you have sets of documents that you can put in and becomes your knowledge database. But it turns that document it chunks it and turns it into vectors, and vectors are numbers, and it just makes this, it means it can make associations. So when you do a query, you actually get candidates for then generating responses back, but it only uses that information that you're sending it to create it. So it's not going out onto the internet and pulling out something that somebody's I don't know, a South African building regulation or whatever. It's using what you said. And these are very good. you know, you hear about people, they set up the building regs, they set up some standards or whatever, and you have different knowledge bases. And this really is the sort of core of things. And if you start to use these with the mixing them with the with spatial databases and then other environmental databases and everything, you pull together a system that is basically turning the whole thing into a very smart building.
Tim, sorry.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Can I just say something, Richard?
Very quickly, George. Very quickly.
Yeah. So what we're offering to people, this is part of what we're doing with the Golden Thread Task Force, which is a collaborative effort. So if you've got a project where you think it would be useful to run this against, to be able to do audits, let's say, for example, for checking Regulation 38, is all the information there needed to satisfy building regs? If you just put your put project in the chat, then we can pick up and talk to you about that, because there's opportunities for us to apply this on live jobs. We've got capacity to look at that as a collaborative team. Okay, that was it, Richard.
Okay, we're going to have to. I apologise for the sprint that this meeting is. I didn't do the agenda. I take no responsibility. Okay, right. Before I move on, if anybody is interested in getting involved in our AI working group, put AI in the chat. AI in the chat. Okay, right. So George is now going to go through the benefits of using the Golden Thread.
Okay, so what we've been doing over this last probably 18 months or so, we've been asking people at the various different forum meetings the current state of the art in terms of what information they're getting, and importantly, what their senior management think that's happening. And in most cases, what we're finding is that the information managers and the subject matter experts are probably getting fairly switched on to what the Golden Thread is about. But as we get up the management level, I think the detail just isn't there yet, where people think that they can transfer risk, whereas actually, as I said earlier, they clearly can't. So what we want to try and do is make people more aware of the importance and value of the information and the Golden Thread. Now, people throw the Golden Thread term around quite extensively, and everybody's got their own Golden Thread in many cases. What we've been doing this now for 5 years, and really it's important to just have some key things. It's electronic, it's for the whole process, and it also needs to be easily transferred when there's a change of ownership. But I suppose at the end of the day, the only thing that what we really need to do, rather than it just being a tick in the box, we need to identify what it's actually doing for you. And what we're really trying to help the information managers in the community communicate is that what it's actually doing, it's translating the needs of the client into the detailed needs for design, construction, and operations and recycling. And the analogy I would use is that it's a DNA that's working through a series of solutions, all of which work together. And the only way really projects work is if everybody's working collaboratively. If people are just looking to transfer risk, where we've got those traditional silos. So what the group, the Golden Thread, some of the members of the task force have been working on this for the last month or so to say what information's needed, who's gathering it and how, who's benefiting from it, and importantly, what are the potential cost savings? So why are we creating better quality information? What's the business case for it? And what we've done is broken the process down into 9 stages of that cut across whatever procurement route people are operating, and also any differentiation between disciplines. So there's the stage of information capture, going through the process. I'll come back to you, Nick, if I may, otherwise, yeah. And what we're really looking at is from a point of view of there's planning, creation, and then operate. And the common DNA there is the thread of information. So what we've tried to do is look at what activities are people carrying out. So during a project, there's a series of steps that the Golden Thread can help with if it's tied back to activities. And the same with handover into design and construction, into operations. But what we've then tried to do so that we can start to put some tangible value against these things, we've then related that back to outcomes. So looking at the various different activities, what's it actually doing? Well, one is improving the information quality and auditability, reducing risk, whether it's cost or whatever, improving supply chain. And then we've then looked at this from a point of view of these 6 outcomes that cut across all of those activities and all the benefits that actually come from them. So the important thing here is that the information, you're probably already paying for it to be collected anyway. The key thing about that is being able to repurpose it and make sure it can be presented for that value. So where we're going with this is to say, right, from a stakeholder coordination point of view, there's a series of different benefits that we've got through having better information requirements, for example. The same with using tools like Mortar for capturing the information and classifying it properly. And as James was saying earlier, looking at FMS 002 and the other government standards for specification make a huge difference. Looking at product data, what are the benefits of having digital product data? The key thing for me is that you can automate the O&M production process. And why are we validating the data? Well, if that can be automatically checked, then any tools that are doing that, it means that we've got something that's progressively being validated through the process. Then we've got the creation of the asset, being able to bring together all of the models, the various different asset data sets, 360 photographs, and then improve the process. So the reason I'm going through this is what we're doing is we're looking for people that are interested in this level of detail, who are willing to take some time to go through it and improve it, and also relate which software applications they're perhaps using to see whether they are or how they're then performing in this whole process. So these are the sorts of steps that we've got, and we'd like people to participate in this knowledge sharing, so that we can actually build the value propositions for, why is it that we need the maintenance information, for example, because in many cases the construction teams aren't aware of why it's important to have that information about work instructions, for example, because they assume that SFG 20, for example, is a silver bullet that sorts it. SFG 20 is really important, but it needs to be mapped against products and asset types, so that that information can go into whatever the work order management system is. So overall, what we're saying is that we want really people to be able to take this on board, and then maybe use this to cost justify why the organization needs to invest in better information, and come up with some examples. So these are some examples that we've come up with in terms of, if it's taking somebody maybe a couple of hours to find information, then that then has an impact. Life cycle cost and risk is a significant one. Making it so that a main contractor can be more confident of the information that's coming from their supply chain, that's an important one. So the long and short of it is that what we're looking for is input from the collaborative team, so that you can map what you're doing against this process. So if you're interested in the benefits, that's what I'm calling this, the benefits side of things. Just put benefits in the chat.
Okay, thank you, George. So anybody interested in getting involved with George has just been showing you, and is interested in getting involved in the benefits, identifying them and hopefully benefiting from them themselves, put benefits in the chat.
George,
benefits. Excellent. Right, Nick.
Isn't there a gap at the beginning of your process of identifying what risks you want to manage with the golden thread? I mean, I know we've been told that structural and fire are the risks we have to manage, but you can't have information requirements unless you've got a purpose, and the purpose is to reduce those risks.
I agree. And the way I would say it as well, Nick, is that I'm pleased that you've raised that, because as far as we're concerned, the golden thread is not limited to structure and fire. Yeah. From a legal perspective, from a statutory perspective, it may be, but the philosophy of the golden thread should be related to all assets, all projects, really.
Yeah. So yes, I mean, there are obviously health and safety risks, which is where we started, but there can be commercial risks or environmental risks in some projects, which you may or may not want to track to the same level. And there's social risks like health and AHAB law and those kind of things. So I think that the mainspring for all of this is I need to say not so much cost as risk.
Well, cost is a risk, isn't it? So that's yeah. Okay. So absolutely. And I think the important thing here is to try and put some value on that process. But there's other people want to speak. Sorry.
Yeah, if anybody's got any questions for Tim also on the AI and data engineering, now's the time to ask. James.
Oh, hi. Yeah, so thanks for having me. This is the first meeting, but just touching on that, George, just because I've consulted on and built a few in terms of digital twins. There's a few bits that you touch on there which I think are are paramount. And it comes back to Nick's point there really as well around golden thread. You need to start with your use case. So
Agreed.
why are you doing this? And I feel your pain, George, because we go through this a lot. You're trying to find and work to a commercial benefit to the client, because this is what you're ultimately trying to sell into them, and sell can sometimes sound like a dirty word, but you are, because ultimately you're having to build this out, map it, and work your way through. We've got some, and maybe in the future call I could certainly run you through some of the ones that we have, but we did some for a site of ours which we built in 2019. We handed it over to the client, and last year undertook twinning that environment as part of the exercise, and that was extremely problematic, even though it was a site that we felt was fairly clean. We had all the drawings, we had all the information, we felt like this should be something we could go in. It was difficult even in that, because even though we're on site, it's under a managed service contract, so we are doing the engineering, we are doing the maintenance, you know, it's the whole scheme. It's a challenge, it's particularly difficult. And I think you're raising some real good points that it sounds like everyone on this call is ultimately a convert anyway. So that's great, because it means I'm speaking to people that know. But we certainly suffer when we're talking about digital handover, information, twins, is that we are talking a language that we all understand. It doesn't necessarily always translate to how the operation and the maintenance of the building work. In my past life, I would have put together O&M manuals, and I get disheartened under the thought that they just sit on a shelf and never get touched again. But in reality, if something breaks, they call someone. They don't go to the O&M manual, which they should, or in this case, if it's digitalised, they should be able to go on and check and find it. But it's now we're trying to bridge the gap between what we're trying to achieve digitally and making it work in the real world. So I haven't really got a point to mine. I was just going to raise to say that I feel the pain.
Excellent, excellent. Right, Liam.
Right, I'll make it really quick. So I work, yeah.
I like to hear that.
So I work as part of the, I suppose, safety / asset management team at a housing provider. What we've done with the golden thread is quite kind of revolutionary, I guess, to a point. The way that you guys are looking at it in terms of the digital twin, golden thread information, we're kind of at this point now that we're proving why it's so important to have that use case of golden thread management. So we've gone to the direction of contextualizing the sites, how it would be for a customer to breathe and live the site, the social value, the healthcare, the safety, and overall the better asset management. Pointing this, we've saved up to £250,000 in about 6 months just through access, spearheading that right information. And I know it was a point that Kevin made earlier about the fact of having the right type of information. And one thing that we like to do here, or my team does, is to have correct information, nothing too much for people to delve into. Another point of it is DMC. That really hit us hard, and the point is that ventilation, all that information, though that should be passed over, we've got a lot of old buildings which suffer from 1960s regulations. So having those retro BIMmed, having those brought in, gives us a really good use case to evidence what we can do to kind of negate DMC. I suppose my overall point is there is absolutely for you guys use cases. There's absolutely savings to be made, but the larger picture is that it's a springboard to something much better, because we've used information at the moment to kind of proactively look at trend data and work through what we can do with customers. But there's so much more we can do as AGI or AI. Everything just to give assurance to the company as a whole. But absolutely. Yeah, as I said, really quick, if you guys, anyone want to talk to me about that separately, drop me a line.
Excellent. Cheers, Liam. Okay, Howard.
Yes, it was just a quick reminder, I suppose, is that when we're looking at risk, we've obviously on any project that's like a construction project, refurb, whether it's through the FM activity, should always have a risk register anyway. And it's quite surprising how often
risk is only annotated to the design or the construction, and not necessarily the effects of a poorly operated or poor digital or poor design. And therefore we're trying to now, well, we're obviously including the risk of golden thread or lack of information, or the integrity of the digital information flow within the DRR, the Design Risk Register. And it's just another prompt to be able to bring it to the attention of the client and the team. So rather than actually having to make a separate business case, let's try and use the existing tools. The other thing that occurred to me is that the conversation about business case is really valid, because we've always got to justify any increase in service fee or cost. And if anyone's got any sort of data, which is actual data of where they've enabled a real-time saving, anonymize the client, the site, just give a detail of what sort of site it is. If we can start collating data which is anonymized, it will then further validate where these percentages and where these assumptions are coming from. But we're all under the we're all under the NDAs and commercial and the confidentiality conflicts. So if we just anonymize it, then we should be able to build it up, because otherwise it's still going to be another data set that we're going to have to justify.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Tim, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to hurry you again. You're on mute, Tim.
Yeah, sorry. I was just saying I always get hurried, right? I just wanted to expand on James's point, which he said something goes wrong, they ring somebody up instead of going to the O&M. Okay, so when they ring somebody up, what we want them to do is go to the AI assistant. I mean, I started developing this for my own house for an AI assistant. And if you go on LinkedIn, you'll find a video of it where I just ask a question about, you know, where are all the doors in the house or whatever, or what's the warranty on the kit on the fridge, or the some appliance or whatever. And it told me exactly, right, okay, where the gaps are now. And I know that the other thing is that we never actually test data to see whether it's fit for operations, because nobody knows how to do it before you hand it over. So you're really left with the experience of the O&M of the FM people sort of coming in. But now we have the opportunity to actually gather that knowledge together and start to build out these ways of testing information, whether it's fit for purpose as it's being created and passed through the pipeline, changing the concept of the O&M. I mean, we did the O&M, review and everything, but it showed me that what the O&M is really a sort of consolidated executive summary of what is being provided and why it's being provided. But in fact, it's very vague. Whereas in fact, what we should be saying is we need these data sets and their products, and you need to, and then we can test it, because more of it is data. It's easier to test. Yes, we need all the narratives and things that explain to people how to do something or what to do in this particular case. But at the end of the day, although it's like science fiction, it's almost like we are living almost on the edge. We're in the edge of it now, and we can start to see it happening. And I think it's going to happen quite rapidly. But ultimately, that's the information that you put together isn't wasted, because we can show it's actually been tested with scenarios, tested with what ifs. And the thing about the digital twin, okay, what's going to happen in 5 years' time? Sorry, what's going to happen in 5 years' time to my building? Give me if this situation occurs, so that we can prepare for the worst and hope for the best.
Excellent. Cheers. Thank you. George.
Yeah, so are we talking about me going on to the collaborative projects?
Absolutely. No, we're talking about where are we? Yes, collaborative projects.
Okay. So.
Oh, data engineering outcomes.
Yeah. Okay. So we. Sorry,
Oh, you weren't ready?
I thought I was. But clearly not.
You see, Tim, you could have talked longer.
Well, while he's saying that, I've just seen that Kobe is actually in the FMS 002 under Section 7 Data Systems 7.2. The asset register should be, as a minimum, codified in line with the standards for being transferred, and it mentions a Kobe. So there you go.
There you go. Good filler.
So what we're really looking for, as Tim's saying there, if you're doing things in the either the data engineering or the AI front, what we'd really like to do is to include you in the groups that are building those types of relationships. So if because there's lots of people producing or using AI now, they're using ChatGPT and many others, Copilot, etc. If we can bring together the people that are doing that and work as part of the Golden Thread Task Force, then we've got something that then is more joined up. So if I just show you this quickly. We've got a series of projects that we've been operating over the last few months, and we've just had a couple more that have been added. One of them, actually, James, is with one of your projects. So essentially what we're doing is we're trying to pull together people that have got tested solutions. So for example, James just now, he can join, and these will be people that have either got services or software. And the important thing about this is that we can encourage people, or we can get them working together before they're used on actual projects. Therefore, we've got relationships, trusted relationships with things that already work, and we can bring those together with the type of standardization, classified libraries and standardization, so that we can then bring the solutions together in a way that then can deliver pragmatic and qualified or certified processes. So this is one that the task force is doing at the moment, where we've got a combination of Equans, Multivista, and the NHS at Sandwell. So we've basically taken the spatial model that's come through, or the CAD drawings. There wasn't a BIM model on this, at least we've not been provided it. And then we've got a spatial model, which now this has just literally happened 2 weeks ago, that Multivista are now going to take 360 photos, and then those will then be used to verify the asset information that's come through from the delivery process. So those are the sorts of things that we're doing. We've got a major project on at the moment with Ridge and Risk Flag, which is Tower Hamlets, and Watney Market, which we've been working on for the last few months. This is now going to be scanned, and we want input from people who are involved in asset capture for us to get involved in this as well. This is something where you can track what we've been doing. So if you're interested in Watney Market, there's been some delays on it, but we're now kicking off on that. So things are moving ahead quite quickly now. And this, the principle here is that we've got information that needs to be coordinated. So the golden thread, if you've got a golden thread project, we need you to be able to demonstrate that it's not just individual systems or that are there, it's systems of systems. So that if, for example, a fire breaks out in the kitchen there, we want to make sure that the smoke doesn't get into that stairwell. And no matter how good the door system is, for example, unless the penetration seals are done properly, we're not going to get anywhere. So that's the sort of process that we're operating, where we're treating the asset information in a way that then can be used by any software application that's maybe doing those inspections. And here's a live example from a real project where the information from the construction team, from the O&Ms, has been reverse engineered using the technology that Tim was showing you there. But the important thing here isn't which software it's being used. It's actually that what we're doing, we're federating information that is, say, the fire zone information, and also the information about the safety critical assets that are in that those that are maintaining those compartments. So we've got the compartments there, but also the information about where the doors are, what the specification of the doors are. So this information again is coming from manufacturers. So these are the sorts of examples of golden thread information where we can also tie it back to the fire strategy. I was talking with somebody on Friday, where by producing an updated fire strategy plan, they've been able to remove the need for hundreds of fire dampers, because they're no longer in compartments, because the new fire strategy has moved from the fire compartment being a room to being a much bigger area. So that's why the fire strategy plans are really quite important. So that's the sort of process that we think that we can bring if we've got lots of different federated information. So if you're interested in any projects, either joining the projects that we're already working on, but more importantly, bringing a project to the table, as it were, then put projects into the chat. Okay, Richard. You're on mute, Richard.
Yes, that project includes, if you've got an O&M for a project that you want the task force to analyze and validate, put project in the chat. And if you're interested in our AI group, put AI in the chat. Put AI in the chat. Other than that, just final call for anyone who's interested in education, put education in the chat. In residential, put residential in the chat. And healthcare, put health in the chat. A lot of call outs today. And we regularly, and this will be no exception, we'll send out invites for a quick one-to-one chat with one of our steering group. These will be literally 15 minutes, quick chats to see what you want to get out of what we're doing and how we can help you. So don't be surprised if you receive an invitation for a one-to-one with one of our steering group.
Richard, can I just say that I forgot to just mention this. This is the result of our the LLM that we're using on the data sets at the moment. This has just asked a question in plain language, as you see. Looking at 7,000 documents, does it contain the information that's needed to satisfy Regulation 38? And you'll see here, it identifies what is there, which is very helpful, but importantly, what isn't there. So and this takes probably, as Tim's saying, 3 or 4 minutes to do. And we've done this for different data sets. For an electrical safety perspective, for example, exactly the same as well. So because of the platform, we can now do this very easily. So if you do have an O&M that you want to that you need to check, or if you've got something coming up to a gateway, then it's the sort of thing that can be done by the task force. Obviously there'll be a fee for that, but because the different people have got to be paid, but it's a fraction of the cost that it would otherwise be, and it's quick. Okay. So if you're interested in that, yeah, put project into the.
Okay, so we're gonna wrap that up. We'll be holding another meeting. Our next monthly meeting is, what's the date for the next monthly meeting, George?
Let me 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's the 11th, Richard.
Okay, the 11th. Have you got that, Jess? I'm sure you have. So the 11th, same time. See you then. Everybody will receive a link to the video, summary, high point notes, and remember, you can go, as I showed you earlier, you can go on the website and find everything under the monthly forum. Great. Okay, with that, we'll say goodbye and see you next time. Great meeting. Cheers, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.